Hello, I'm Nick, and this is Circuito de Jerez, Angel Nieto, in Spain. Now, you guys know this racetrack from MotoGP, World Superbike, and many other great racing series. But today, we are here for what's before me. This is the brand new Triumph Street Triple 765R and RS. So that's 2/3 of the current Street Triple family, and they received a pretty healthy update for the new model year. Now, part of that big change is an updated 765cc engine, all of which is derived from the Moto2 Championship that Triumph is the sole engine producer. So they've learned a lot going racing, traveling across the world, meeting people, experiencing new things, and gaining some horsepower. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today with the R model, which is designated more for the road, and the RS, which is the up-spec, perhaps more track-oriented or track day-oriented, we should say, sportier version of that classic Street Triple. Now, we're going to get into this first ride review, and I want you guys to stick around. So first things first that we're going to talk about, as you can hear that beautiful triple cylinder engine howl over yonder, is the engine. Now, there are a bunch of mechanical updates for this year, and like I mentioned before, they're all derived from the Moto2 spec engine. There are a host of changes to the 765cc engine this year, and it goes like this. Shorter intake trumpets in the airbox feed an improved inlet port design, new cams and valves increase lift, while new machined pistons mate to a redesigned combustion chamber, helping produce higher compression ratios, and everyone's favorite, more power. More power means stronger connecting rods were necessitated, as well as gudgeon PIDs, and there's a few other changes down the line. Mechanically, the two engines between the R and the RS models are identical, but each bike features a unique state of tune to help separate them. The R forgoes some of that top-end power in favor of making slightly earlier peak torque, while the RS's extra ponies live in the upper mid-range and top end. For the R, we've actually increased up to 118 horsepower and 59 foot-pounds of torque. And on the RS over there, we're seeing 128 horsepower and again, 59 foot-pounds of torque. Now, realistically, with the R, and that's what we're going to focus on here, the R is more of a road bike. So what you're going to get out of that is something that's similar to the previous generation. It makes a little bit more gumption, just kind of a sniff everywhere. Has a new fuel tuning as well, so new fuel maps for your 4 separate ride modes. And that's something that I think Triumph is doing an incredibly good job on with respect to either motorcycle. The various modes and just the throttle connection is quite literally incredible. Now, going through that, you have this engine that has a new exhaust system, single catalyzer, all that good stuff. But the feel is still that classic Street Triple engine. Builds power nicely and then has a bit of pick-me-up in that kind of 7,500, 8,000 range. Then it really starts going. And that's what you can say about the RS as well, which makes a good bit more horsepower, and it is palpable for sure. Now, a lot of it lives in that upper rev range. So if you're at track days, you're really gonna get at it, or if you're having some fun in the canyons. The engine updates help increase power and torque figures, but shorter transmission and final drive gearing improves acceleration across the board, and that's what really matters here. The Street Triple R and RS get off the line much harder these days and are never off the boil when you're riding on the road. Of course, the RS feels that extra whiff more energetic without really taking things too far. At the racetrack, it'll be putting that super slick up-down quick shifter to work due to the shorter gearing. Sure, that sacrifices some straight line top speed, but you can often roll a taller gear into a corner and still have plenty of torque to yank you off the apex. Now, zeroing in on the R and its riding experience, it has different suspension, little bit riding style as well. So you're gonna get the Showa single function fork up here, fully adjustable, it's really good value, fully adjustable shock in the rear. It's a relatively neutral riding position. It's a very agile motorcycle, very compliant, easy to use. Now that, we'll say, lower spec suspension is still a very good piece of kit. You know, you get good bump absorption, all that good stuff. The shock with its high speed damping, you know, particularly on those super hard edged hits, you can feel a bit of that. But realistically, that's sort of the core change between the R and the RS. Of course, you do have some, we'll say, lower spec brakes. They are M4.32 calipers from Brembo. Tried and true caliper. It's on many motorcycles. Good feel at this axial master cylinder. Again, save a little bit of money here. And then the riding position itself. Let's get into that. Of course, the foot pegs, seat, neutral riding position, very comfy, but you have wider handlebars these days. They're 12 mil wider. They actually come from the Speed Triple, so the big brother. Now, getting into the electronics, as we mentioned before, that is another key point for this motorcycle. Both bikes run a 6-axis IMU. You have cornering ABS, lean angle sensitive traction control, all the goodies, wheelie control as well. And to be clear, traction control and wheelie control are actually linked, so you can't independently adjust them. Now, the R does well with 4 riding modes. You have rain, road, sport, and a customizable map as well, so you can select whatever you want. And as I mentioned before, good throttle connection, very, very dialed. It's a slightly different experience. You know, it's relative to the previous generation, but it has that extra little sniff. And then the refinement that's gone into this, the engine smoothness, the throttle connection, all of that is just a cut above the prior generation. So that's really what you're paying for at $9,999. Now, moving to the RS, the big boy. What you're getting with this is, again, a bit more spec. You're getting a Showa BPF fork, so it's fully adjustable on each leg. You're also getting stylemic calipers, the latest and greatest from Brembo. You're also getting an Öhlins STX fully adjustable shock. That does change the ride quality a little bit for a couple reasons. First, they've actually jacked up the rear end's height a little bit, kind of put the bike on its nose, made it a little bit more aggressive. So when you're talking back-to-back handling, this thing tends to handle a little bit more aggressively. Wants to tip in that extra sniff, wants to be a little bit more aggressive on the edge of the tire. And all around, it's for that personality that really wants to have some sporting fun in the canyons. Another difference between the R and RS bikes is tire choice. The road-focused R model uses Continental Conti road tires that feature a more neutral profile to match its sporty and compliant handling. Grip is there, but the Contis use a harder rubber compound and carcass construction that favors mileage over outright performance. Meanwhile, the racier RS uses Pirelli Diablo Super Corsa SP tires that stick like glue on the street or track and definitely improve handling. In addition, the RS's braking system comes into its own at the racetrack, where the up-spec Brembo stylemic calipers and Brembo MCS master cylinder offer loads of feel and stopping power. The only downside here is that those with smaller hands might want some more lever adjustability. The traction control, all of that stuff, the new IMU, and it's really improved that, because the last time we met the Speed Triple 765 at Cartagena, there were some issues with the ABS. It was a little bit intrusive. Now that they've gone to a fully modern system, that is completely eliminated. You will feel just that tiny bit of ABS just letting you know it's doing its thing when you're on the racetrack and you really start hammering into those heavy braking zones. But that's not really a complaint, it's more of an observation. That said, the electronics, I think, do an incredible job, you know, really allowing you to just kind of do your thing, maintain good drive. They're not too intrusive, and they're always a helping hand, so I love that. Now, with the RS specifically, you also get that TFT dash that's a cut above the R. You also get a track mode. It does a couple things here. Obviously, it's a more aggressive mode. Again, throttle mapping, really, really good. And that track mode is going to disable cornering ABS and retain your lean angle sensitive traction control. It's also going to disable the linked braking system, which really helps on the road, because if you think about braking aggressively, okay, you know, you're getting on the brakes, adding that little extra brush of rear brake can help settle the chassis. But in a racetrack situation, that can actually be a bit tricky. So for the track mode specifically, that's disabled. That said, we did ride this on the street in comfort settings. I think the suspension here actually, you know, proves its worth in terms of just upping the ride quality a hair. I think its actuation is a little bit better than the other Showa stuff here, but that stuff is still quite good. At the racetrack, it can definitely shine as well. You get a really compliant chassis, it's very agile, turns in nicely, and this is just something that, you know, really builds confidence. And it's also a little bit more aggressive, like I mentioned before. Back end's a little bit higher, so higher seat height. Okay, cool. But overall, I think well, 2/3 of the Street Triple family, they're in a really good place right now. And I'm extremely impressed with these motorcycles. Had a great time riding on the road, and also doing a full track day at Circuito de Jerez Angel Nieto. And that's all I got to say for now. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and drop them down below and we'll get you some answers. Now I'm gonna get out of here. Take care.